In this video, I'm going to go step by step as to what you can expect when you file a SIRVA case in the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. So first is the consultation. When you call up a vaccine injury attorney, you'll go through a consultation process where they're trying to gather basic information from you and make sure that you meet the requirements for filing a case in the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. So during that process, some of the questions that I ask are, which vaccine did you receive? Make sure that it was one that is covered under the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. Number two, I'm asking how it was administered and where. And number three, I'm asking when your symptoms began and getting an update on your treatment to date. For a SIRVA case in particular, your symptoms have to start within 48 hours of the vaccine administration. When I say symptoms, I generally mean pain. Sometimes it can include range of motion issues or strength deficits as well. When I want to get an update on your treatment to date, the reason I'm asking that question is there's a severity requirement to the program. And that requirement means that your symptoms have to have persisted for at least 6 months before you're eligible for filing a case in the program. Again, when I reference symptoms here, I mean pain, range of motion issues, strength deficits, anything involving your shoulder. The pain at the 6-month mark or your symptoms at the 6-month mark don't need to be severe in order to be eligible. There just has to be some sort of symptoms for at least 6 months. Other questions I will ask in the consultation process is to make sure that you receive the vaccine within the United States, which is a requirement in the program with limited exceptions, and make sure that we're not time barred by the statute of limitations, meaning that it's not been more than 3 years since your symptoms began. Once the consultation process is complete, if you meet the basic requirements, you may be offered representation by an attorney. The next step would be actually hiring an attorney to file a petition for you. Now, it's not necessary that you file or hire an attorney to file a petition, but it's a good idea because usually the attorney will be well versed in the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, how it works, what needs to be filed along with the petition, and what your case may be worth. And so they can help facilitate getting you to the point of either getting a judgment or getting a settlement with the government. The other reason to hire an attorney is that it's free. The Vaccine Injury Compensation Program pays attorneys their fees and costs. So at no point will that cost be borne by the petitioner. Okay, step 3. So you've hired an attorney, and now it's time to put together your petition and gather your evidence. So during this process, the attorney will be requesting all of your medical records, collecting those, and preparing them as exhibits to your petition. The petition should cite all the medical records throughout the petition, and making it easy for the government and the court to review everything and making it clear that you suffered a SIRVA injury. Not only do we need the treatment records pertaining to your shoulder, but the court requires that we file all records dating back 3 years prior to the vaccination as well. So there's a lot that goes into preparing a petition and making sure you have all the evidence that you need. Along with the records, your attorney will also prepare an affidavit for you, which allows you to add some testimony, some additional context to the records about how your symptoms started, what you've been through, how this has impacted you, and on a daily basis. Once all the evidence has been put together and your petition is drafted, the attorney will file the petition and file all the evidence up front. And after that's completed, they'll file what we call a statement of completion. And that signals to both the government and the court that we've filed our case, it's ready to be reviewed. After that process, the government then, in this case, the Department of Health and Human Services, will begin its medical review. During its review, the Department of Health and Human Services is looking at mostly your medical records to see if it demonstrates that you suffered a SIRVA injury. Some of the things that they're looking for are evidence that your symptoms began within 48 hours, a diagnosis that can be associated with SIRVA, so something involving your tendons, the ligaments, or the bursa within your shoulder, that you experience pain and limited range of motion in the affected shoulder, and that your symptoms persisted for at least 6 months. So these are the elements of a SIRVA case. And that's what the government's going to be looking for. If you preponderantly establish these elements, then there's a chance that the government may concede that you suffered a SIRVA injury. In that case, then the only question you have left to determine is how much compensation are you entitled to. If the government, in its review of your records, determines that you haven't met those elements, or that there's something lacking with your evidence, they may dispute your case. And if they dispute your case, they could either be interested in trying to settle it for something less than full value of your damages, or they may just outright defend the case and not be interested in settlement, in which case you or your attorney would have to proceed with litigation and try to convince the judge that you've established the elements of a SIRVA case, which leads us to step 5, which would be recovery. So as I outlined, there's basically 3 ways to get to a judgment. Number 1, the government concedes that you suffered a SIRVA injury and you agree on the amount of compensation that you're entitled to. Number 2 is there's a dispute as to whether you suffered a SIRVA injury, but you and the government agree on a settlement amount to resolve the case. And number 3, there's a dispute either to the value of your damages or whether you suffered a SIRVA injury, which requires the court's intervention, in which case you would file a motion and try to convince the judge that you're entitled to compensation. If you're successful, the judge would enter a decision that you're entitled to compensation, and in some cases how much compensation, which would be the third way to arrive at a judgment. When the court awards you compensation, the types of compensation available include any out-of-pocket medical expenses. So anything that's not covered by your insurance related to your SIRVA injury is reimbursable through this court. If you missed time from work and actually lost income or earnings as a result, that's also reimbursable. And then finally, there's pain and suffering damages. So pain and suffering, is representative of the duration of your symptoms, the type of treatment that was required, for you to recover, and the impact that this injury had on your daily life. And pain and suffering damages can range depending on the severity of your injury, and that's another reason why having an attorney is helpful, because he or she can tell you, whether or not what the government's offering you, is the true value of your pain and suffering damages.